He is a 13-time Bassmaster Classic qualifier, a 6-time Bassmaster winner, a former Bass Nation national champion, a 2-time Progressive Bassmaster Angler of the Year, and a Bassmaster Century Club member. From Rathdrum, Idaho, the Prodigy Brandon Palaniuk joins me this week on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course, humpers. You're all welcome here at the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. Welcome into the 163rd edition of the Mercer Podcast, and I hope you are having a great week. Happy Hump Day to all of you, and no matter what's going on, no matter where you are, I hope that this podcast makes your week just a tiny bit better, just a little bit better, a distraction from the real bullcrap that goes on in the world. And with that in mind, I do want to talk about a news story that has floated around this week, and I'm sure many of you have taken notice of it, but we hear it too often, and I think you just become numb to it. But last week, a 30-year-old professional golfer, Grayson Murray, took his life. Said he was under the weather after the second round of competition, had 2 holes left the tournament, went home, and took his life. Grayson had battled with anxiety and depression like so many people do, and I don't know the details involved, but I just felt the right thing to do was to mention it and just to give a moment for everybody to think about life. I mean, it is so precious. It's so short. And as my wife always says, everybody is fighting a battle. You don't always see it. I mean, Grayson competed in a tournament with cameras all around him and nobody saw it. And that's why I'm always, sometimes people will be like, well, you're just pushing positivity. No, I just think this is fishing. This isn't rocket science. This isn't serious. This is fishing. This is something that so many people use as a coping tool to get away from all the bull crap. And do we deal with serious topics? Sure we do. But the most serious topic is the fact that people are choosing to end their life. The most precious thing that you have is your life. And people are choosing to take it because they're suffering. And it's not exclusive to the professional golfing world. It happens in the professional fishing world. It happens everywhere. It happens in all of our lives. So I think I just take this moment to remind people, number one, if you're suffering, we hear you. You're not alone. Talk to somebody. And number two, just I want to remind everybody, think of how often, not even having a bad day, but just somebody saying something kind to you, somebody saying good morning, somebody taking the time to point something out. Hey, you look good in that shirt. And how that can change your entire day. And that's what I hope that this community that we've built gets known for. A community that tries to change things for the better. And listen, we're going to talk about serious topics on this show at time to time. There is serious stuff that happens, and I get it. But at the end of the day, it's fishing. It's something we all do because we love it, because it's a feeling. And I don't know about you, but I feel it. The second my boat floats off the bunks of the trailer, I feel it release. The pressure of just everything around you. Everybody's got life problems around them. And all I'm asking you guys is just to be a little kinder. Even in the comments, like you get these people that are just arguing over forward-facing sonar and all this craziness. None of it really matters in the big picture. If you don't want it, don't use it. If you don't like braided line, don't use braided line. If you don't like whatever, Alabama rigs, don't use them. Do what you need to do, but let's stop judging and let's start making people's days better just by just a couple of words. And sometimes it's not even a word. It's a smile. And that's what I hope that this community gets known for. Those are the changes I hope this community, as this podcast, gets known for. Because believe it or not, you guys all can make a huge difference. If everybody just takes a moment to be kind to somebody you know, somebody you don't know. Remember to tell people how much you love them. Remember to tell people how much they matter. And remember to show people that. Okay, I'll get off my pulpit now. And hopefully that matters to some people. Speaking of mattering, something that really matters to me, and I'm embarrassed that I haven't shown it until now. This is from the Bassmaster Classic. But this is a picture that was left for me by that dude right there. That is RJ. RJ is a young man with cerebral palsy, and this picture was taken at the Classic 2 years ago. Well, he dropped off this frame and this bracelet for me. I didn't get to see him at this year's Classic, which I'm kind of bummed about. But thankfully, Andrew Hayes from Tackle Talk Podcast got it and got it to me. So I thank Andrew for that. Check out his podcast if you haven't listened to it. It's a great show. But thank you, RJ. You're everything that's good about professional fishing. When people want to argue about all the crazy little things, to see your eyes light up, to see how excited you are about the sport of fishing, that's everything that's good about the sport of fishing. So I thank you for your gift, RJ, and I hope next year at the Classic I get to see you. And thank you. Thank you. Let's just jump right into this show. There's a lot of stuff going on in the fishing industry that a lot of shows are going to talk about. I mean, the thing that happened at Sealy's Big Bass event, where somebody put lead inside a bass, they busted him. Thank you, Bob Sealy, for continuing to run an amazing event. And bonehead, stop doing stupid crap like that. Other great stories. Kevin Van Dam on his last day of competition, well, basically outperformed my entire professional career. Won $100,000 for Big Bass. And in that same tournament, Jordan Lee reminded everybody that, guess what? I'm still friggin' Jordan Lee, and he won the event. And he's sitting in second in Progressive Bassmaster Angler of the Year in the Elite Series, and our next two events are in Alabama, so life is good for him. Those are a few of the amazing highlights from this amazing sport. But one of the most amazing people in this sport and one of my closest friends is our guest this week. And this conversation goes a lot of different directions. I mean, we have, we talk about all sorts of different, I mean, this conversation will make you a better person in many ways, but it will also, we also talk about some conspiracy theories. We have illustrations. Brandon Palaniuk gives us illustrations. Just when you thought this podcast couldn't get any different, we have illustrations from Brandon Palaniuk. But this whole conversation started from one Facebook post, and that Facebook post was to inspire goodness in people. So I think it all kind of makes sense. Without further ado, we go to Rathdrum, Idaho, the Prodigy, Brandon Palaniuk. BP, we're making a podcast, and you look quite studious today. Most people on podcasts have fake books behind them, but for some reason, I believe that they're actually real books, correct?
Those are real books. Yeah, that's not just like a hidden doorway, which would be super cool. But
Super
nowhere
cool.
in my house do I have like a hidden bookshelf doorway. I wish I did, but they're real. If I move out of the way, they're real.
Oh yeah, they're real nice. Is that a goal in life to one day have a secret doorway in your house?
I'd love to. I wanted to build a hidden room in this house. We just opted not to due to financial funds, but I really have a plan that I want to build one out. You know, it's like a safe room / gun room, zombie apocalypse type of place.
Okay. Okay. See, I thought that me being the degenerate that I am, I thought, oh, you're going to have like a speakeasy, a bar, somewhere to hang out, but you really just want, if zombies come, you want to be prepared.
Maybe both.
Okay.
Maybe it's dual functioning.
Do you think zombies are coming one day?
Aliens before zombies.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Why?
people kind of walk around like zombies now, right? It's like, just go in an airport. It's almost like the airport in 2024 is well, probably like 2021-ish, 2020, 2021. The airport was the closest thing to a zombie apocalypse that you'll ever see.
It's getting strange. Have you ever seen the movie Up?
Yes.
Or no, what is it? What is it? No, it's Wally,
Don't
not
look up.
Up. Wally. Have you? I don't know what it's a movie where it's Wall. No, is it Wally? I don't know what it is, but it's like a kids movie. It's cartoon, but it's like nobody moves. Everybody just like floats around in these chairs, and they've got to the point where they're too lazy to even eat, so they just have these shakes, and they don't communicate with people. They do use computers to talk. It's becoming more and more like that as we have a digital. Like when I was a kid, dude, when like this was Jetson stuff. Like one day there's going to be a video phone. Well, it's here. I mean,
yeah,
the world's changing.
I agree. If people only knew how long I spent just trying to get my camera and audio set up.
Oh, you look fine, and people look at him, breathe it in, because it took. Well, what did about 20
minutes, 20 minutes.
20 minutes, 15 minutes. I mean, but the extra effort is appreciated. Let's jump right into this, dude, because the whole reason me and you talk quite often, but the whole reason we're doing this is because you posted something, and through the magic of editing, it will appear on the screen, but I'll read it for our audio listeners. It is a picture of a hard hat, I guess, and it has "Live to Fish" on it. Not spelt exactly as most people spell it now, but that's your creative side coming out. But basically, the post is, I made this out of duct tape 17-ish years ago, way before I qualified for the elites. Every time I come home and do work around the property, it's a good reminder to be thankful for where we're at. Oh, hold on. At the time, I was building logging roads for a living and spending every dollar and every minute I had on fishing, working to get to where I currently am. Life good. Life is good. Life's good. You put life's. I'm a bad reader, obviously. But I thought that was just such a fitting post for today, for now, with everything going on. Why did you feel the need to post that?
When I post stuff, it's very rarely, I shouldn't say never, but very rarely do I post something out of like the need or necessity of someone else's feelings or whatever, right? So generally when I post something, it's what I'm feeling or what my family's feeling or doing or what's happening in our life. And when I posted that, we had just recently got home. We got a little break off the Elite Series, and our property has a bunch of just small timber and little trees around it. And it was long overdue. It needed to be cleaned up. So I just started this project of cleaning it up, running chainsaw, making slash piles, burning them up, doing all that stuff. And I had been working for most of the day, and I just walked up and my hard hat was sitting there, and I looked at that, and then I took a picture and I wrote that and I posted it because when I looked at it, I got that feeling of being thankful, right? Of like, it took me back to when I made that on there on my hard hat. And then made me feel really old that I'd had that hard hat for that long when I was trying to think about how long ago I posted that. So I was like, oh, that had to have been like 7 or 8 years ago. And I started thinking like, well, no, I've been on the elites now 14 years, and I had it several years before that. So yeah, 17-ish years ago, I wrote that in duct tape ripped the duct tape, put it on my hard hat, lived to fish, and wore that hard hat running chainsaw up in the mountains of Idaho, running heavy equipment, whatever. And that's literally what I did. I lived to fish. Every decision, every dollar, every second was spent like, how do I get closer to making it to the Elite Series and the Bassmaster Classic and fishing for a living? Right? I was working to get to the point of where I am now. And now I have a wife and kids, and so priorities have shifted, as I feel like they should. It doesn't mean that I love fishing less, or it just means that like I don't selfishly dismiss everything else in my life just for fishing. And at that point in my life, I did. Pretty much everything else was a secondary thought, because I was so focused on the goal of getting to where I am now. And that's the same story for a lot of the guys, or I would say probably the majority of the guys that fish for a living. Doesn't matter what tour you're on or anywhere, even some of the guys in the opens that get to do it for a living, right? Maybe they guide partial time and then they fish all the EQs. They've got some sponsorship money and they get to fish for a living.
Yeah.
Realistically, there's only, say, 200-ish of us in the entire country, right? Like, that's a pretty small percentage of the amount of 500,000 plus Bassmaster members there are, whatever that number is now. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are on that, but that's a really small percentage.
Yeah.
And I just, all that stuff goes through my mind, and I'm super thankful to be where I am, and just try to keep that perspective. And sometimes it comes from little things like a duct tape sticker on the back of a 17-year-old hard hat. And that's just things that go through my mind.
What, take me back to that time, like even at that time, did you know you were going to make it? Like, was it as simple as like, I'm just doing this until I make it? Or did you think that this could just be a dream?
I would say at that point, I started to have glimmers of hope that I could make it, because I spent 7 years fishing the Bass Nation, and I was fishing both sides at that time, because in Idaho we could fish the TBF and the Bass Nation. I was fishing both of them because I wanted every opportunity I could get, and in Idaho, well, your opportunities are pretty slim. So at that point, I had qualified for some national championships. I had some success, and I don't know, it's hard to explain because it was all mostly internal.
Yeah.
Where it was like, I always felt like I was going to make it. I just didn't know how long it was going to take. And at that point in my life, I didn't really care how long it took, because there was no other option. I'm going to continue to do whatever jobs I need to do that allow me to take the time off and allows me to financially support myself to do it. Right. I didn't have any sponsorship money. Had like a couple local companies that helped me out, but pretty much self-funded, like I'd get discounts on tackle and things like that. But financially, I was self-funded with blood, sweat, and tears, pretty much.
I think that feeling of you're going to make it is normal, though. I mean, I think that's part of the beauty of youth. Like I look at my career, and obviously a much different path, but it was the TV end of things. And I never, ever thought like, I'm not going to fish for a living. Like I was like, I'm bartending for a while, until I can fish for a living. And I bartended for 5 years, and did that at night. But I just think that that's part of the beauty of being young and dumb. You know what I mean? Like if nobody
Yeah.
has shut your brain down and made you feel like you can't accomplish things, why not?
Yeah.
You're going to, or there's no sign of you stopping anyways. Like, I mean, for me, things would have had to go really, really, really bad for me to ever quit, because I really didn't have other options. It was either that or cocktails and dreams for the rest of my life.
Yeah, like you would have had to have had some sort of physical like disability happen to stop you. Right?
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Like I was gonna have to have something mentally or physically go wrong outside of my control. Like I was gonna have to get crushed by a tree or something, which happened really
In your
really
line of
close
work.
a few times. Like in my line of work at that time, it was highly possible. Like people got crushed by trees. There's lots of scratches and stuff in my hard hat that prove that.
What's the closest you ever got to getting crushed?
Oh God, this one time I stood up and my knees were clacking together like I just caught a 10-pounder in the Bassmaster Classic. In a bad way though, just like the adrenaline rush. So I was cutting right away for this road. So people that don't know, right, you get like a timber sale. They say, hey, we need to access this patch of timber, this section of timber. We need this road built in. We flag the road out, right? It could be different widths, whatever it may be. Say it was 60-foot width at that time. You have all the plans, it's flagged out. I would go in and I would cut the right of way, which is cutting that 60-foot width, we'll say, down this path to then come in and pioneer and build the road, and to go through that whole process for the log trucks and everybody to access this timber sale. So I'm cutting the right of way, and sometimes when you get in those places, like you'll cut some trees, but depending on the way that everything's leaning and the way the tree growth is, sometimes you have to go, like you may cut some trees and you get them laying on the ground, and then you have to go forward and cut a few trees and bring them back so that you can kind of open up a gap to fall these trees. Well, I was in some really big timber, and when you get in that and you get it around like some big pine or something that the limbs are this big around, sometimes they act as levers or like catapults. So I had cut a bunch of timber and went forward, and I fell one back to me, or back to kind of the direction I was coming from, but I had already fell some, and then I had limbed those trees. Well, I didn't realize that some of those trees were then under the limbs, right? So you got these giant limbs laying this way, trees this way, and when I fell that other one back this way, it landed on some of those limbs, shot this tree up, like they catapulted this tree up that was right, like, massive around, and there's nothing to hide on. Like I'm on a steep hill, I'm on the downhill side, the tree is up here, and it catapults up, and it is coming hauling ass down the mountain, and the only thing I had was the stump that I had just cut, and so I just jump behind this stump, the tree hits, goes, launches off the stump over my head, and then lands behind me, and I'm just fetal position, right, curled up behind this stump, and everything kind of quiets down. I stand up, obviously, like stump and like peek up, make sure there's no other trees coming, and I was safe, but it was that was probably the sketchiest one where I thought, and it happened instantly, like so fast. I just had to look, stump, dove. If not, who knows what would happen. I might have died on that mountain.
Wow. For some reason in my head, I have veteran What are you lumberjacks? Is that like what it's classified as? What would it be classified as?
I mean, that's probably like
Woodsman?
that's a term. Sawyer is
A
like
sawyer? Okay,
yeah.
and for some reason I'm envisioning veteran sawyers looking at you and being like, "Live to fish. That kid's not even gonna live."
He's not even gonna live. I actually have it right here. Like this is not staged. Cora just thinks it's super cool, and she drug it in here with all her colored pencils and stuff. But like this is actually it. So if people watching want to see it, it's backwards. Is it backwards to you? It looks backwards.
No, it looks fine to me.
Yeah,
Through
okay.
through
I didn't know
technology, I
if the
think it's
image was
flipped
like
around.
mirrored or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had a GoPro mount on it because I had filmed some stuff.
You should have had one on that day. That would have made a wicked video.
That would have been so sketchy. But yeah, like it's kind of cracked right here. It's like a little bit split and cracked. I can't remember which one that one's from, but I've taken some pretty big limbs, or you get around some trees that have like a dead top in them, and you maybe don't fully realize it, or you do see it, and when you cut it, it goes to swing, the top breaks out, and you know, the tree moves, but the top comes straight down.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did you do that for?
16 to 22.
So when you were 16, you were chopping trees down.
Yeah, and running heavy equipment. So
you are so freaking manly. I am such a loser. I didn't get my driver's license till I was 18.
I was kind of put into I kind of grew up around that. So my mom ran heavy equipment when I was a kid. So she was a excavator operator.
Wow.
And when I was really young, we would go up in the mountains, right? They would have a job up in the mountains, stay in a camper or trailer or something. And we weren't old enough to really even be by ourselves or to be left alone. And so I would ride in the back of the excavator with my mom, and I would just sleep in. There's not a back seat, right? There's just a seat and then a window, and there's a gap, and I would sleep in that gap.
Where people
pays to be a little guy sometimes. But so I grew up around it my whole life, and then my mom dated a guy for a long time when we were really young, because my parents got divorced super young. And then when I was like 8 years old ish, my mom started dating a guy that ended up being a major father figure in my life, and he built logging roads for a living. So he owned this company that built logging roads, and I just started working for him, right? Which then allowed me to be able to make boat payments, truck payments, and then I had a connection to someone who knew that that wasn't my ultimate goal, right? He understood that fishing was like my life, that was my love, and that the working part, the sawing and heavy equipment and all that, that was just to pay for the fishing.
Yeah.
And so getting time off if I needed it, if I qualified for nationals, whatever, I could do that. Or if I wanted to work 7 days a week for as many weeks as I wanted, I could do that. So yeah, during the summers, I did that a lot. Worked at some tire shops, mixed in with that, and yeah, just it's funny because I haven't done a lot of that stuff in the last 14 years, like just here and there. But I can hop on a piece of equipment now, and it's just like muscle memory. It's like riding a bike or like throwing a bait caster. You just hop in. I don't know. It's kind of fun. I'm thankful that I have those skills to be able to do stuff now.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to this post. Was that all? You said you post things for yourself. So was that all for yourself? Well, like, why did you feel the need to post it now? Was it all for you, or was it for some of the stuff you're seeing?
It was for me, but there's no doubt that there's a lot of things going on in the industry. And oftentimes when like you feel something as an individual,
Yeah.
odds are there's a lot of other people feeling those same things. Right? Doesn't matter what it is, anything in life. And so I think the feelings I get, like specifically to the fishing industry right now, are shared with a lot of other people. Right? There's a lot. I'm trying to think how to say this. To me, there's a lot of unnecessary negativity in the industry right now. Doesn't mean that there aren't things that need to be fixed, but the problem is that the negativity is overpowering or overshadowing the positives of what we have. And sadly, that is how the world works. That's like how our brains are wired. For whatever reason, humans are attracted to that negativity, or it pulls us in, even though in our mind we know that that's not what we want, right? So like it pulls us in, and then we get to a point and we're like, ugh, I don't like it. But now you can't back all the way back up, right? And you get sucked in, and it's hard to get out of that, right? Or it when it overshadows or it throws a blanket over all the positive things, sometimes you can't see those, right? Because they get hidden in all of the noise of things happening. And so when I post something like that, it's not for anybody or directed to anybody else, but that's something that I feel like probably a lot of other people share, right? Or maybe something that other people need to hear, right? To look at it, and because it's sometimes you just need that little wake up call, right? And for me, it was a hard hat laying on the ground from 17 years ago, and because I'm guilty of it, right? We're all guilty of easily getting caught up in kind of that drain of the negativity that can be so loud, and I try to drown it out, and you do that through perspective. Is kind of how I've always done it, right? If it's like, okay, you get a negative thought, dismiss it, and what's the positive, right? My kids aren't old enough to teach that yet, but as they get older, I'll try to teach that of like, okay, something bad happened. What's the positive you can take away from it, right? Because to me, there's always a positive way to look at something.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the bad thing's not bad, because there's a lot of bad things that happen. It's like, how do you adjust and take some bit of positive away from it, even if it's just a tiny little sliver of positivity?
I get that. Something that I'm always pointing out to my kids too is, what did you do to make it better? You know what I mean? Like, if you're not, and it can be something as simple as, I'm not feeling good today, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling whatever. Well, what did you do today to make that better? And sometimes people that suffer from a lot of stuff that seems almost impossible, but literally anything you do, just by making an effort, you instantly feel better. You know what I mean?
And I think both of them are a choice, right? It's not like you're forced into choosing negativity or positivity. Each of them are equally a choice. You choose who you surround yourself by or who you talk to. You choose how you look at things, right? Glass half full, half empty type of deal. And I think people forget that sometimes. So, like, it's you have that choice.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't like it, try to change it. But if you have a problem with it, also try to come to the table with a solution.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't like this. Maybe here's a way we could change it. Whatever it is, right? It's like, I don't like all the little tiny trees that are like matchsticks around my house. How do I change them? I either hire somebody to come do it, or I go cut them down and burn them myself.
Do you think people are getting increasingly more? Like, why do you think people? I get why people are attracted to negative, because that's like you said, that's a natural thing. I mean, just look at the news, look at TV
Yeah.
shows. Like you don't have to. I mean, look at the Real Housewives of anything. I mean, it's so predictable. We're gonna go somewhere, and
Yeah.
we're gonna tell each other to tell the. We're gonna tell the viewer how rich we all are, and then we're gonna go somewhere, like let's say Aspen this week, and whoever, let's say Mercedes, because that seems like to be somebody's name that would be on that show. She's going to have everybody off to the ski lodge. It's ridiculous. And then we're going to have a really expensive dinner just so we can get into a big fight about something that was said a week ago. Like but people, it's one of the most watched things. Why do you think people seem to be increasingly more attracted to that?
I don't know that people are increasingly more attracted to it. I think it's increasingly more available or
Yeah.
more relevant, right? Like between social and TV shows and streaming and the news, like, right. Once companies realize that that has an ability to make them more money, and then they lean into that and they leverage it, well, of course, now it's going to be in front of us more, right? There's going to be more clickbait news titles and things like that. And so I don't know that it's I think that human nature has always been that way.
Yeah.
People, you know, and so I don't know that it's that we're more attracted to it than ever before. I think it's just in front of our eyes more than it ever was before. Right?
Yeah.
It's more readily available. There's more negativity readily available, and it's like you have to have. I don't. I'm just throwing this random number out there, but it's like you have to have 5 positive things to drown out 1 negative. Right. So it's like on social, it's like you need to see 5 positive posts to drown out 1 negative post. They're not equal 1-to-1. And like, I mean, you know this from doing a podcast. Like, you could come up with a title that would get you 5 times as many, uh, 5 times as many views as maybe some of the titles that you choose.
Almost every week. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, there's part of me that I'm like,
Yeah.
why do I do this? Like, why won't you just succumb and be? I mean, it's easy to. I mean, if I put out Brandon Palaniuk's thoughts on forward-facing sonar, Elite Series rookies, fishing in locks, running speed zones, finally he opens up. This podcast blows up. But for whatever reason, there's part of me that's like, I just don't want to. I don't know. I'm a creature of habit. If I hang around with a lot of negative and I feed myself with negative, I become negative. If I hang around with a lot of positive, I become positive. So
that's human nature. I think everybody's wired that way to an extent. I think the easy route is negative.
yeah.
It's hard to be positive all the time. And you don't have to be positive all the time. Like the easier route is negativity, and human nature is the path of least resistance. So maybe that's why people lean more towards that, because it is easier to like be negative or blame other people or dismiss things, like not have the accountability for certain things. Maybe that's it. Maybe we
Yeah.
just solved that problem.
Well, and you think about it, it doesn't matter what it is. Like if somebody has a positive experience at a restaurant, they're like, wow, we'll go back there again. If they have a negative
Yeah.
response at a restaurant, they start posting, and you know what I mean? Like people want to get, it's just, it's a
Yeah.
weird time. It's a weird time. And it's a very weird time in our sport. Do you think that, why do you think this year is so weird? And like, I mean, there's times where I'm honestly believe that I've never seen professional fishing, and I don't mean the Elite Series. I mean everything to do with pro fishing, whether it be podcasts or whatever. But I've never seen it as toxic as it is right now. Like it's gone way past forward facing sonar to being like, guess what? So we're going to be pissed about something. I mean, there's going to be, and again, I'm not putting anything under the rug or being that guy that's seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. I mean, when things need to be, I mean, it's competition. You're always going to have people coming from different perspective, but it just seems like this year is out of control. Is that all podcast's fault, or
no?
What?
I'm trying to think how to say it. Like, there's no doubt there's things that need to be fixed, but there's always been things that need to be fixed. Always. The rules have always been adapted and changed and rewritten because a new situation pops up or something happens, right? Like, they used to catch and kill all the bass at the tournaments. And then guess what? We came up with catch and release, right? You think some of the dudes were like, how am I going to feed my family if I can't keep all these bass we catch in the tournament? Right? Like, I'm sure somebody complained about going to catch and release, or
dude, they literally had a standoff, like Bob Cobb and Ray Scott. I forget what tournament it's at, but they literally had a standoff where never mind the anglers, the local authorities, because Ray Scott, when he said we're going to go to catch release, took it from trout fishing, just said we got to reinvest in the resource, which is smart, obviously.
Yeah.
But they had a standoff where the local, outdoor agency and the cops and everybody said, if you release these fish, we're going to charge you. So it's like, which seems so out of control, but it's how people thought. And now you look at how different that is. Now, if you keep a 2-pound bass to eat, people are like, you are the devil.
Yeah. I mean, that's just an example of how things change. I think one of the things that makes a difference this year is that there seems to be so much change happening at the same time. And when you have that much change, there's that much more tension, right? Because change is hard. No matter what it is, like, change is difficult. And so you have like all of these conflicting things, and this tension builds, right? And it starts with forward facing sonar, like last year, really, and heated up toward the end of the year and carried on through the fall and the winter and into this year, and it just continued to go. And then all these other things happen. Then we have this rookie class that's really good, that's just incredible, because for the last however many years, 20 years, we've taught them how to teach our job or take our jobs. Right? Between Bassmaster articles and media sources, right? The learning curve is so much shorter now, even from when I started 14 years ago.
It's worlds difference. Like,
I mean, it's like not even the same, right? And so, and then I vividly remember having a meeting of like a bunch of elite anglers and bass staff come together and saying, hey, we should change the opens format to all 9 tournaments, because we're getting a lot of these guys that qualify through the opens and they're not ready, right? They come in, they're not prepared, right? Maybe they qualified through 3 events or 4 events in the schedule. They had fished, most of those tournaments their whole life. They get in, they don't want to miss the opportunity. They put a bunch of money on a credit card, and then bam, they're kicked out in 1 or 2 years, and they got $80,000 in credit card debt. And everyone came together and said, that's not good for the sport. We got these guys come in, and then we're just sending them off with a bunch of debt if they don't requalify. Well, guess what? You just got rid of all those guys that were at the bottom, not qualifying, and not calling anybody out, but like that's what was happening. So you had a portion of guys coming in that weren't ready, didn't have the skills, but had qualified, took the chance because they had that dream. Well, we erased that. Nobody thought of it at that time that, oh yeah, we're just gonna get 9 of like the best dudes and a nation guy, because guess what? The guys that come out of the nation are pretty dang good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them on the Elite Series right now that make the Classic every year. And so you're adding like all of these guys, right? Is there some discrepancy in things that happen? Yeah, there are. But the problem is that a lot of the things that guys are upset about, there's not rules against it.
Yeah.
There will be next year, right? But we can't do anything about it this year or the next group that's coming in, because there's not rules set in place against it. But there will be moving forward. And I think that's where like people get so mad, but it's like it already happened. Like we can't. It's like, okay, you can be mad about it, but not to the point where you're willing to just wreck your whole career or like give up on your whole season because something happened, right? Like move on from that, and then let's fix it. And if we were in the position where Bass said, no, like, nope, we're doing whatever we want to do, you guys keep your mouth shut, that's it, I would be super pissed off. But at least they listen, right? They will take our phone calls or emails or whatever from anyone, from any of us, and hear us out, and then make the best decision for the entire sport. So as long as that continues to happen, I'm like, yeah, it may not be perfect right now, but just like it's been since the inception of tournament bass fishing, things come up that weren't thought of before that need to be changed, right? Rules need to be changed. And that's kind of where we're at now.
Well, so the big rule that seems to be getting a lot of press is obviously that the Opens qualifiers were able to get information that the Elite Series guys weren't able to get because, they knew they were qualifying and they weren't under the Elite Series rules. But that's already been changed. Like, not on paper, obviously, but it's already been said, hey, they will be under the same rules as you moving forward. So like that's what frustrates me, where you hear a lot of people making that a platform and you're just like, well, that already got changed. Like they've already said, we're going to change that. Yeah. What else needs to be changed?
Yeah, I mean, that's really like the biggest one. There may be some other rules where, like this year with forward facing sonar stuff and different things of like fish hooked inside the mouth, right? You and Carl talked about that.
Yeah.
It cracked me up because I think I texted you afterwards and it was like, you guys had went full circle of, hey, we're gonna like, what about this? Oh no, this situation. Okay, well, what about this? No, this situation. And then you guys like came back, and when you both agreed on how the rule should be written, it was almost word for word how the rule is currently written. So I got a pretty good kick out of that. It was like, it's almost as good as it can get. But forward facing sonar, like, it creates a little bit of a gray area of like, is it visually fishing or not? And to me, it all goes to the intent part, which is hard to police, because that's not something that you can physically see, right? That's an internal choice of a guy. Did you intentionally snag a bass or not?
Yeah.
Whether it's on forward facing zone or not. And so my thing is like, if I'm throwing a jerk bait and I'm bringing it back to the boat, I see a fish at 90 foot, I cast my jerk bait to 110, it comes into the screen, my jerk bait is now between me and the fish is chasing my bait down, right? And then at 40 foot, my rod locks up and he comes to the surface and he's hooked in the back. I didn't intentionally snag that fish. Like, I'm twitching the bait away from the fish, trying to get him to trigger. And however he ate it, like, I don't know how he tried to eat it, but when he swiped and tried to eat the bait, it got him. Before forward facing sonar, I was like, you were like thanking the Lord for that happening. Now you're like, I didn't do it on purpose, right? And so it puts you in a weird place. Like, I remember it seemed like watching Van Damme, like when he was throwing a crankbait, he always had one stuck in the back.
Oh yeah.
But that was his thing, right? Because he'd be like, my freaking treble hooks are the best. Look, I snagged one in the tail. Like, he swiped at it, tried to eat it, and I hooked him and I landed him. And so like before it was always, that was a good thing. It was like, so I think that's where it's really hard to police. Of the anglers have to also uphold not only their own credibility and integrity, but also they have to uphold the integrity of that shield on their jersey and on their boat. And if the anglers aren't able to do that themselves, then Bass eventually will step in and do it, which means then there's going to be a lot of heartbreak situations that happen, right? So if we as a group can't police ourselves on some of these rules, then we will force the hand of Bass to make a rule that then will handcuff us in certain situations.
Yeah. I.e., every fish has to be hooked in the mouth.
Yeah. It's not what I want. I love throwing a glide bait, but I can promise you, if it went to every fish has to be hooked inside the mouth, no way. Like, I would hardly ever throw any treble hook bait. Like, I would throw
jerk baits, gone.
No jerk baits, no top waters. Lake Murray, thrown a top water. The very first bass I catch at Lake Murray is on a top water. I'm working the bait, right? It's walking back and forth. Choo, 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 choo. Fish blows up on it. Big blow up. I set the hook, tink, right across the back. I can't intentionally snag that fish. So I put him in the box. Like, he blew up on my top water. He was a pound. He was 1.73 pounds. And I was happy to have him. But if you were to change that rule, right, that every fish has to be hooked inside the mouth, I gotta throw that one back. Like, the dude blew up on a top water. He came from 5 foot of water, swam to the surface, blew up on my top water, missed it. I got super sharp, sticky BKK hooks, and it stuck him in the back. Like, lucky me. Glad I chose the right bait and the right hooks to, like, at least get him in the boat. So yeah, that's one where I just hope guys can police themselves. And like, if you have to let one go, you have to let one go. But letting one go is way better than for the next 20 years having to let 100 of them go.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess I've thought about this a lot. And
I mean, you did drive for like 5 days to go home. So
no, I drove 2,200 miles in 2 days.
I'm sorry to take your accomplishment from you.
It was a long time. I just did it in 2 days. I say we, and this means like every level of bass fishing. The will, or like the feeling or the need to succeed, cannot outweigh our morals and values and that integrity. Or like, if the want to succeed, or like the pressure to succeed, outweighs your morals and values, that's where the issue becomes, right? And your morals and values should take precedence over that success.
Yeah.
Right? If it costs you a $10,000 check, do the right thing and sleep at night, right? And if everybody could do that, we wouldn't have as many issues. Like, if all 100 guys on the elites, or all 80 guys, or however many are on the Bass Pro Tour right now,
79, I believe.
79. Oh yeah. Yeah, because Watson's not there. Yeah, 79. I didn't know if they filled this spot or not. If every single guy did that, then there wouldn't be any problems, right? And all of us are competent enough to know the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where the intent comes in. Everybody knows the difference between right or wrong in their gut. And sometimes things happen and you intentionally break a rule, right? Like, maybe you didn't know that was a rule, or you unintentionally ran a no wake zone, right? Like, things happen. That's why we have the penalty box. You've talked about that a bunch recently.
Yeah.
And that's why it's variable time, right? So that the penalty fit, or the punishment, fits the crime.
Do you think there's things happening in the Elite Series now that guys are valuing winning over morals? Like, our guys?
I think it happens at every level. I do. It creates desperation. Where guys will start to push the limits. It's no different than, like, if you're pushing the time clock at the end of the day, right? Like, you're like, in your gut, you need one more bite, either to win or make the top 10 or make a top 50 and cut a check, or like, you'll push it way more to the end of that time clock than you will if you got 35 pounds and you're like, I'm gonna win. You're like, coast in 10 minutes early, like, let me make sure I make it in. You're not trying to catch one more 8-pounder. And I don't think it's any different than that. And I think it happens at all levels, because there's different things that create some of that desperation, right? Whether it's qualifying for the elites, guys trying to cut a check to make their next payment or make their house payment or, save their careers, not get kicked out of the elites, make the classic. Like there's all these things that create pressure, or like expectations of that success, that it's easy to stray away from doing the right thing. And you constantly have to be like, nope, it's gonna cost me, but this is the right way to go about it, right? And it's like when I cold one at the Mississippi River on the wrong side of the state line. I had no clue.
No.
I purposely left the Mississippi side with 5 bass, drove to what I thought was the Wisconsin side to catch one more and cold, and then left and saved them for the next day. And when they called and they're like, hey, did you cold a bass right here? I was like, yep. And like, okay, we're gonna have to call you back and let you know what happened. And then they said, like, we're DQing you for the day, or we're DQing your day's weight. So I didn't make the cut. Finished like 73rd or something. I could have been super pissed about that, but who was I going to be pissed at? It wasn't anybody's fault other than my own. And so I thought through that process, right, before I just blew up, and thought, okay, how am I going to handle this? There's no reason to be pissed at anybody other than myself. And it was a learning lesson, because I promise you, anytime we go to border waters now, I know where the line is. Like if it cuts an island and it's an imaginary line going through somewhere, I'm going to know about it, and I'm going to be on the right side of the line. And use those as learning lessons. But I could have fought that, right? I mean, who knows? Like I could have just not cold, came in with 6 fish, got a 2-pound penalty, and still had a 4-pound lead.
But I never even thought about it like that. You totally could have.
Yeah, like I literally could have. And it's not like I haven't brought 6 fish in before. Well, I have never brought up 6 fish to the scales. I've made a cast with 6 fish in my live well 3 times now on the Elite Series. One of them, I believe, one of them might have been on the Mississippi River. I don't remember. No, wasn't on the Mississippi. St. Lawrence, Santee, and Toledo. So I haven't done it on the Mississippi, but I could have just accidentally not cold, still had a 4-pound lead.
But it feels like from the outside, obviously being there when that happened and watching how that affected you, and at that point in your career, I mean, it turned into yet again another Disney tale around you, that you said, I'm gonna win the next tournament, and you won the next tournament to get into the classic. And so in retrospect, it became this fabled tale. But I feel like right now, if that happens again, people are like, well, that punk kid, he did this to get an advantage. He did, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I nobody called you out at that moment. Like I don't remember any angler. Like I remember a lot of anglers being like, oh, that hurts, tough break, but
I think it all depends on
how you handle it. Feels different now, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on how you handle whatever situation, like whatever happens, right? It's how you handle it.
Yeah.
Bad things are going to happen in your life. Good things are going to happen in your life. It's like, how do you, how you react to that is the difference. I actually had this conversation with a buddy of mine's kid. So at the Sabine River, we stay with his family, and they've pretty much became our family. Amazing, incredible family. top to bottom, husband, wife, daughter, son, they're all amazing. And their son is an incredible athlete and like probably one of the most impressive. I think he's 6, 7. Probably he'll watch this and probably be upset. I don't remember his age, but incredible.
I'm impressed that he's an incredible athlete at 6 or 7. Like, I mean, most kids at 6 or 7 aren't really that incredible.
Coordination, speed, everything is he's top notch. And he's super competitive. So we were playing pickleball at their house. They have just like a little small pickleball piece set up in their, they have like a little CrossFit gym thing at their house. And so we were playing pickleball in there and he did not like getting beat. And I had this conversation with him of like winners, losers, and champions. And it's like winners know how to win, but they don't know how to lose. Right? And so you don't want to just be a winner. And losers obviously know how to lose, but they don't know how to win. A champion knows how to do both. I said, be a champion. And in whatever you're doing, know how to win, know how to lose, and that will take you to where you want to be, whatever it is. Because he can probably flip better than me. He can definitely play baseball better than I can.
Well,
But I mean, I think that having that mindset is kind of the difference, right? Of like winning is not winning in life should be everything, but like winning a trophy is not everything. And it took me a long time to understand that. I didn't think that way when I was 23.
yeah, but obviously you did. I mean, how old were you when that fiasco happened?
26.
Were you? Oh, I guess you were 26.
No, yeah, 20, 25, 26, something like that.
Because for you to stay focused, because I mean, dude, I remember that happening. I remember being like pissed. Like, how can a dude be disqualified for some stupid, because everybody that fishes tournaments there, they call all over the place. But
Yeah.
bass always stays to the letter of the law. And, that's why we've been to places where, you can't drop shot, you can't, different things, because they're kind of archaic rules that people, the drop shot rule in Michigan, that's got to do with nothing to do with bass, but bass tournaments happen all over the place and they're not affected by that. But Bassmaster tournaments stick to the letter of the law and kind of always have done that. And I agree with that, because I mean, if they're the leaders, they got to lead.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good thing they did, because guess what? That rule got changed. It was an archaic rule from like salmon snagging or something back in the day.
Yeah.
And enough like publicity came from that, I guess, that that rule actually got changed. Like you can now cull on either side of the river.
So tell me this, because one of the things you said is there's always positive. There's a lot of people right now that are all in on the negative. What's the positive of this season?
Literally get to fish for a living. That's a
great one.
That is the simplest thing. And that goes back to the hard hat thing, right? Of being thankful for where you are now. And I speak specifically to myself, and I think a lot of guys would feel this way of like, you spent so much time and money getting to where you are now, which is exactly why things get so heated, right? because guys are so passionate about this sport, and beyond that, they put in so much sweat equity and financial equity into it, and all of those things, they create that tension because you care about it. But at the same time, that, like, taking a step back and looking at it and saying, man, I love this sport. I love everything about it. And being thankful that you are in the shoes that we're in. Because easily you could not be. And you don't know when that's going to happen, right? Like, I wish we still had Aaron and you could talk to Aaron, but we can't. I mean, nobody saw that coming.
No.
But it happened. It happened too early, earlier than anybody ever wanted it to happen. And the reality is that could happen to any of us tomorrow. But people forget that.
And if you're in that situation, the last thing you're going to be thinking about is, what really pisses me off, forward facing sonar. Like, if that log hits you, although there was no forward facing sonar at the time, it's the last thing that nobody's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. You just want to be out there. You just want to be. So what about people that say, you're just full of crap. You just, you guys are staying positive, but that's just, the winds of change need to come from pitchforks and screaming.
It's like I said earlier, it doesn't mean that there doesn't need to be change. Like, things have changed, and then there also needs to be change that happens with that change, if that makes sense. There needs to be adjustments that are made. And I don't think that, like, you don't dismiss that, right? By being positive, you're not saying like, oh, everything's just fine. Like, it's just good. You're not just dismissing everything. But how you react to that is going to determine whether or not those things get changed a lot of times, right? It doesn't do any good to just scream and yell. And then, because what happens is a lot of times people just shut off. Or like, if you get in a fight with your significant other and they just walk through the door and they're screaming and yelling, and you're like, whoa, 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 like, I don't know what's happened. The response back is much different than if someone comes up to you and is like, has a thoughtful conversation around it, like, hey, this is like some issues I'm seeing. How do we fix it? How do we work together? How do we continue to make this work? That's, I don't know. That, to me, it seems like a simple approach, but again, that passion of how passionate guys are in this sport, or gals, or whatever. It's like, I think fishing fans and fishermen were some of the most passionate people when it comes to our craft out of anything. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there is an answer.
I don't know that there's an answer. I just feel like, relax, it'll all work out. You know what I mean? Like the forward facing sonar thing. And I get where people are frustrated and get where people hate it, but they also signed up to fish 9 tournaments with forward facing sonar. They knew that. Like, it just amazes me that it's like that topic became it was a huge topic. So much so that people may turn their boats into science projects in the off season. And then they showed up, and then 2 events in, it was like, we got to change this now, which they're never going to change now. You know what I mean? Like, as far as I know, they always make the change in the off season. Oh, your color's it's getting darker. See,
well, it's getting slightly darker outside, so
yeah, you're adjusting. See, I appreciate that about you. That's why you're much more successful than I. I just let it ride. I mean, me and Davey Hyde did a podcast, started in a beautiful light and ended dark.
Hey, it depends on your definition of success. You have 300,000 plus subscribers. I got like 67,000.
Which is ridiculous. Dude, you are part of the problem with YouTube, and not you, but part of, like, if you don't subscribe
I'm an example
to
of
this
YouTube's
channel,
problem.
It's true, because you have some of the best content out there, and there's a lot of those on YouTube where you're like, why is this not getting more traffic? And part of it is you don't really play the YouTube game. You are well, in the way that you post when you want to post.
But guess what? That is a choice.
I guess, yeah.
And I know that, like, because I've caught myself getting super upset and then like,
so you do get upset.
100% get upset all the time. All the time. I've been upset a lot in the last however many months. End of last season, beginning of this season. And like, I'll get upset and have this conversation with Tiff of like, why do I keep doing these videos? And sometimes it just feels stagnant, like it's not going anywhere. And, and I'll compare to like other channels or something, like theirs is growing. But then guess what? I know that if I wanted to grow, I would have to then sacrifice the quality. I've had this conversation with Kyle. I'm like, we could put more out. We could split them up into more, split the days up and post more videos, and less quality, more quantity, and post more often. And that would probably almost guarantee that your subscriber count is going to grow. Like, it'll get in front of enough eyeballs, we got enough content, and it's good enough that it could get there. But neither one of us are able to just settle for good enough on the quality side. And so it's like, we know that we have to adjust or adapt or sacrifice something else to uphold the quality. So I catch myself in that battle all the time of like getting upset and saying, like, gosh, like it's so frustrating that it won't just grow.
Yeah.
Like, it's my own fault. Like, I'm not posting enough for it to take off and grow like that. It's not staying in front of the eyeballs of the people all the time. And it's no different on Instagram or Facebook or any of those. Like, just those platforms want you on their platforms. They want the eyeballs. They want you posting more. That's the nature of that beast. And if you want to grow your stuff, then you have to succumb to those parameters that they put in place, or you have to be okay with where you're at and doing it the way that you're doing it, right?
I think it's one of the weirdest things in the world, not just YouTube, but like what's happened with pro anglers. I mean, like,
yeah,
like everybody has these YouTube channels and literally makes it basically a TV show. I mean, the TV show's 13 episodes, so most people are putting out at least that many, 9 tournaments plus the classic, plus whatever. So most people are putting out literally a TV show, but used to be able to just fish the Elite Series, and now like all of you guys are putting out TV shows, but I don't know anyone that's making money off them. Like, they're literally, it's become a brand extension, and there's you're making in certain different ways, but as far as like, there is none of those shows that I know are getting paid a ton of money to be like, boom, here's what we want to see, we want to support this.
Yep. Yeah, that's a fact. And I look at it and I see all of them like, I don't know how these guys are affording to do it. Because it took me a long time to, like, I probably spent 3 years saving up and thinking about doing it before I pulled the trigger the first year.
Yeah.
And then I did sell sponsorship for it the second year and the third year. We're sponsored by Go RVing. And then since then, it's been self-funded. And that's another battle I go through. I'm like, why do I keep spending all of this money to do it? Because it's really hard because it's not apples to apples.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, hey, I put this video out and I get paid this, right? It's like, I put this video out, I get paid X. And so it's hard to look at it and see the value in it. And that's a conversation that we have a lot, like in our circle of trust. And then I'll get one email and it'll be from a mom or a dad or something, right? It says, hey, my kid was in the hospital for something. He watched all your videos the entire time he was in the hospital. And, like that was the only time he'd smile. Or you get someone that says, hey, I was overseas in Iraq or Afghanistan and, watched your videos. And that got me through, right? I've had people present me flags and patches and things, right, that I'm super thankful for. And when I get messages and stuff like that, instantly my brain switches. I'm like, that's why we do it. That's why I spend the money every year to do it, because it's hard when there's not a direct, right? Like I was saying, you're not getting paid. Like there's not a sponsor that's saying we're paying for this. But I do think that I've been able to up the value of my brand for my sponsors, and in return get higher salary, higher paid yearly deals or monthly deals, whatever, because of it.
Yeah.
And I give them access to that. So I've had to readjust my thinking on that, of like, building the brand value up. And even though maybe there's not a direct correlation to it, it does in the end, somehow bring in, or add value monetarily. But then also, when you get those letters and things like that, that's, for me, that's what makes it all worth it. And I'll send them to Kyle and be like, hey, look, like this is worth all the hours right here.
And I think as time moves on, you're going to value it more. Like the cool thing about the way you're chronicling things, it involves your girls, it involves your whole family, it involves all your friends. And I think cataloging memories is, I mean, that's worth something too. But you should subscribe to his freaking channel, is all I'm saying. If you watch this crappy podcast, his stuff's so much better. So make sure you subscribe. I'm going to put a link down below. Because it's ridiculous that you don't have more subscribers, but I don't want to say anything bad about YouTube or they'll shut me down.
Yeah. Both shut down.
It's a weird little world. Like, I'm sure I've told you this story, but like some of the stupidest things that you learn, like and I've fallen into traps where, like, at one point YouTube wouldn't grow no matter what we did. And then but there's the dumbest things in the world, like with all the shorts that I post of underwater videos, which I was shooting all day today, which I love doing. I mean, it's my biggest passion right now. But when everybody would bitch that we had no hook sets, I started putting hook sets in them. And the reason we don't have hook sets, because a lot of times there's not a hook, because I want to be able to get multiple shots of a fish if I actually get one to bite in frame and in focus and so on. But so I started putting up hook set videos, and the hook set videos didn't do near as good as the ones without the hook set videos, because there was nobody bitching that there was no hook sets in the videos. So it just it's dumb the way it all works. But it's crazy. It's crazy. But I mean, I think it's wild how things have just like changed so quick. Like for a while it felt like, oh, TV's going to be forever, and sure, this social media stuff's going to be a thing. Now it's like sponsors and everybody, they care a lot more about social media than TV or almost anything else.
And guess what? It's going to continue to change.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Before this, it was TV. Before TV, it was the radio. Before the radio, it was the newspaper. Like before that, it was telegrams or whatever. Like it is constantly changed, and every time that you get that it's funny. I'm gonna stop. I was about to say this not thinking about like fishing at all, but as soon as it started coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh, this kind of applies to fishing right now. If every time that there's some sort of change, right, like that, like going from the newspaper to radio to TV to social and YouTube, digital stuff, every time there is that change, there are people or companies that adjust and flourish from it. And there are also ones that disappear and get left in the dust every time. In all of those situations, right? There's always things that happen like that. There's always overturn and change of companies and things like that don't adjust. They just dig into one medium. Like, nope, newspaper's our deal. We're gonna stick it out in newspaper. We're not doing any TV. And then next thing you know, it just slowly fade away.
That's a scary analogy because right now in the fishing world, clearly there's a lot of people who feel like they're in jeopardy of that happening. Depending on rules moving forward. But it also goes back to what a lot of rookies say. Well, the weird thing about the whole forward facing sonar thing is there's nobody that is like 20 years old that I've heard that said, yeah, it's cheating. It sucks. I mean, they love it, which makes me believe no matter what happens with forward facing sonar, the forward facing sonar is going to be part of the sport moving. You know what I mean? Even if it becomes illegal in time. I mean, I'm sure at some point people used to laugh at a dude when he brought out a calculator. Silly boy with your calculator. And then eventually people were like, why do I need math? I just put it, well, now I do it on my phone. Like it's
it's the reality of the world, and whether it's fishing or outside the fishing, but it's also it shouldn't be like us versus them or any of that, right? Because we're all trying to do the same thing, and there's commonality in that. Like there's a lot of commonality in that. I probably first realized that when I did that Angler of the Year exchange. Daisuke. And I couldn't speak Japanese. And he couldn't speak English. But we could spend an entire day in the boat together and know exactly what each other were thinking, and we could communicate without any words because we both were at a similar level and had a similar passion for bass fishing. And even though there were no verbal words spoken, we could talk about like, hey, should we go over here? Should we try this? You want to go throw a jerk bait or a drop shot? And because we had that same level of understanding and same passion for the same thing, we could communicate without any words, and have an absolute incredible time. And that was when I came up with like, fishing is our language. Like it's literally a universal language across the entire world, no matter what your differences are, your age or anything. If you're on a similar skill level, in fishing, you can talk to each other in some way.
I like it. I like it. All right. Yeah. Let's talk about some other stuff. What's the strangest thing you've ever found fishing?
Strangest thing I've ever found fishing. Gosh, I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough one.
It's a horrible answer.
One time there was we're fishing a tournament and there was a report. This wasn't an elite tournament. This is like a local tournament, but there was a report of a missing person.
Oh boy.
On the lake. And I thought for sure I hooked a dead body. I was like, nope, no way. You know, because I'm like throwing a crankbait. I think it was early in the spring, or maybe it was later in the fall. Like the water was chillier and someone had fell out of a boat and they couldn't find him. And I thought for sure, like I just see this big like white kind of thing come up and it goes back down the surface. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just hooked a dead body. And it took everything in my body not to just go click and like cut my line off. But it ended up just being like a big like white sheet.
Oh, so there was
thing. Like there was no body, thank goodness. But in my mind the whole time I'm like, because I was in like that section of the lake and I was like, no way. Like out of all the things, like I literally just hooked a dead body, but it was not. So that was probably one of the craziest moments where I thought that I had something wild and it ended up just not. It just ended up being trash, but that one freaks me out.
A buddy of mine found Buck Teitler, one of my best buddies. He found and this is back before cell phones and even GPS and stuff.
Yeah.
But there was somebody missing in our lake and he was flipping some undercut and lo and behold, he comes around the corner and there's the dude. And he pulled the dude into his front deck of his boat and drove it into town. Got there, had to go to a payphone and call the cops and say, I found something. Because I mean, he couldn't leave. I couldn't imagine it. He is much more of a man than I. But yeah, nasty stuff. That went in a totally different direction than I thought. I mean, I thought there was so many other different things you would take that. I mean, you once found almost what you thought was a UFO and things like that. We've talked about, you know.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's way better than a dead body that wasn't even. That's just a white Glad garbage bag.
You know the dumbest thing about that UFO is that the first time I found it, it was absolutely loaded full of giant smallmouth. And then the first day of the tournament, I catch like 22 pounds off of it. I'm in the top 5, I think. I run back there day 2. I catch 1 4.5 or 5 pounder off of it. And I've never caught another bass off of it since. And that was almost 10 years ago at this point, I think. Like,
they didn't want to be bothered, dude.
Like, how does another bass not show up on that? There's walleye. I've dropped an aqua view camera down there and looked. I'm like, it's wild.
The beans don't want to be bothered. They're down there and they're like, they thought the bass were fine. And then this snot-nosed kid from Idaho shows up and finds said base and hammers
this is the
them, and they're
problem.
like, "We're not going to have this anymore. We'll keep the walleye. Screw you, bass."
The bass got to go. We can't have this guy above us. The bass got to go. Drum, yep, drum, gobies, walleye. Come on.
What do you think it was? I remember you showing me the pictures of it back when it happened, but what do you honestly think it was?
No, I mean, it's miles off of offshore. And there's nothing, it's not like
Cylinder shaped, right? It was round, like a UFO, like what you would think a UFO would look like.
yeah, it's like it's round shaped, like this, and then there's a center hole in it, right? So you got a center hole, and then it's like, I mean, it looks like concrete-ish type deal. You can't really tell because it's all covered in zebra mussels and stuff, but it looks like concrete / metalish, and it's like that for a while. And then there's all these like window looking things that go around the outside, right?
Where they're living.
They're gaps. And so, and I've gotten right over top of it and gotten the camera right down in that center hole.
In the hole where the flux capacitor is?
Yes, in the center hole. I've gotten the camera through there. It's taken some time. I've spent hours and hours on this thing. And the craziest part is when you drop it down in there, and then, like, you spin the cable like this with your fingers, and then it takes forever, and eventually it'll like spin around. And when it spins around, there are hallways that go like this. They go
to the pods.
Yes, and they're like angled out into the end of it. That's all I know. It's what it looks like. Whatever it is what it is.
What would you have done if you like spun the camera and through the darkness all of a sudden
eyeballs? I don't know. Probably left.
How big was it?
It's so, if I'm sitting directly in the center of it, it will fill 120-foot circle on my Mega 360. So if you set your range out to like 120, well, no, it's actually probably bigger than that because I have my range out more than that. It's over 100 foot.
And you go back to this like every time you go there?
So no, it's over 200 foot because it's 100 foot, right? That's a circle. So it's 100 foot out on the right, and it's reaching 100 foot out on the left as well. So it's closer to like 200 foot diameter.
So what was it? What do you think it was? Don't be scared.
It's a unidentified underwater object. I don't know. There's some ships and stuff that are like way out past that are sunk.
Yeah, but ships, a ship's a ship. That like there's nothing on.
Well, I know because I've seen ships. Like, we know what those are. Never seen anything else that looks like this. In the water, on land, in the air, anything.
How deep is it?
The lake bottom is like 43-ish foot, and it comes up to probably 34 foot on top.
Would you go swim it?
It's like almost 10 foot. I can't dive that deep.
But if you could, would you?
Yeah.
You're an idiot. I wouldn't. I love that. But there's no way I'm going down that dark hole.
I would do it.
What are you going to accomplish? Like, you're not going to see
I've
a little
kind of already
tag.
seen everything,
but
I would like to. Yeah, there's like hieroglyphics down there inside of it. I don't know. I would just be curious. Just like actually see. Like, I would like to see like, can I swim down one of those hallway things and then pop out the window pieces, or do those not connect? Like, I don't know.
We need to send Kyle. I think Kyle would do it. I mean, he's currently hanging with silverback gorillas. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the aliens, that ain't no big deal for him.
Yeah.
He has the most bizarre life ever, dude. Like, I mean,
Yes.
he's with silverback gorilla. Like, he's not like they're like walking past him. Like,
Yeah, like, no. So
no wonder he
he's
doesn't get
actually
top
back
water
now.
shots. It's so boring. Oh,
Yeah, I know.
great. A
Bass
bass hit
fishing's
your top water. Cool.
cool. So he's actually back. He came over today, and he was telling me that one of the, like, the juvenile males, which is, I mean, still good size, but he said it walked up to him and, like, reached its arm around his leg, like it was grabbing a tree trunk, and just held on to his leg, like around his thigh. And he said he just sat there. It was probably 10 seconds. He said it felt like 10 minutes. And then he said it just, like, let go and carried on its way.
So what was it doing? Just letting him know, hey,
Letting him
don't
know
try
he's
me.
boss, right? Yeah. Like, hey, I'm the dominant one here, Kyle. Just letting you know.
I feel like Kyle would test that though. I feel
Yeah. He was setting the hierarchy of, of the gorillas.
Will you bring me to this unidentified aquatic
Yeah.
saucer?
I'll take you.
All right. All right. Next time we
Not
go
many
there,
people have been, but I'll take you.
I'd like to go. I've been intrigued with it since you
Yeah.
first.
It's pretty cool.
No, and dude, I remember when you showed me it because I think at the time I was one of the first people you showed it. Like it was at, and you're like, you're not gonna believe what I saw, and
Yeah.
and I forgot about it, and then you and Panger started talking about it on the podcast, and I'm like,
Yep.
it is the most. I mean, what
Well,
else could it be?
it's so perfectly symmetrical and, like, spaced out. Like, everything is, like, perfectly symmetrical, right? So it's clearly not natural. That's obvious. So, like, who put it there? Like, where did it come from? Like, that's the crazy part.
I don't know. I don't know. Will you make a
Thank you.
sketch of it for me, just so I can put it on the screen? No, not right now. I'm not gonna put you under that.
Not right now.
No, no, no.
Well,
Yeah,
like,
through the
Corey's
magic
got a
of editing.
bunch of paper around here and stuff. But yeah.
Sometime over the weekend, just either that or find the pictures. But I bet it's easier to make a sketch.
Yeah, I think I lost those on a phone.
Lost them, my ass. They took them from you, dude.
They took them.
The smallmouth can leave. The pictures can disappear.
Yeah. Men in Black, you saw nothing.
I mean, I think that's way better than a glad garbage bag story, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So what are your parting words for the world of fishing right now? I want you to build them up, make them more positive. I don't like seeing the world ornery, or maybe we should
ornery.
Well, no, but it's a lot of, I mean,
you're just being ornery.
Maybe we should just stop listening to podcasts.
Yeah, that's the solution. Man, I feel like there's a lot of weight on that. I guess be a champion in whatever you're doing. Make that choice. Every day we're forced to make thousands of decisions, and those decisions will define the outcome of your life, right? within your control. The things that you have control over, those decisions will define those. And I think if you lean into that or understand that, or even if you're just aware of that, right? Some people aren't even aware that they're making that many decisions in a day. But it can be as simple as like what pants you're putting on or what shirt you're putting on, right? Those are all decisions that you're making. And so whether it's the most simple thing or whether it is the most complicated thing, making those decisions with integrity and intent to not only better yourself, but better whatever it is that you surround yourself by.
I agree. Make the world a better place. I mean, just
it's not easy. It's easy to sit here and talk about it. And I do not have all the answers. I am just as guilty as everybody else of falling into negativity and fighting it. But I'm aware of it and I try to not do that, right? It's hard. And sometimes it's simple as getting outside.
Yeah.
Right? Going for a run, going for a walk, like doing something physical. We talked about this, like, doing some sort of manual labor. The simplicity of it, for whatever reason, it's like when the job's done, it's done, and like that's it. And sometimes that's a super rewarding thing, right? It's like, I'm gonna go walk a mile.
Yeah.
You'll walk a mile and you commit to that and you complete it and you're like, okay, right? Like something you won at for the day.
Something you always feel better after that. And in moment of total honesty, the reason we talked about that is because I get nuts every once in a while and feel like I should have a real job and be a carpenter or build something with my hands, and all I do is talk. But then I talk to buddies of mine that are carpenters and do things with their hands, and they're like, "You idiot! I've never left this town. Be thankful for what you do."
It's all perspective, right? I mean, it's easy to forget like the blessings that we do have and take them for granted, for sure.
Good thoughts. Good thoughts. Yeah. I have a question for you.
Yeah. You can ask me as many questions as you want.
Well, I know, but this one's from Patrick.
I got till Walters. I don't know. I got another hour-ish before I got to go read bedtime stories.
Wow. I mean, this podcast got out of control. I got to be honest, because last week I did a podcast with Patrick Walters. I thought it was responsible. It was an hour and 10 minutes. And several people commented, I don't know if I like the short ones as much. I'm like, it's an hour and 10 minutes. It's not short. Like, movies shouldn't be 3 hours, and podcasts definitely shouldn't. Podcasts are one of the weirdest things when you think about it with today's world, because everything is getting shorter. Like, videos, people just want that quick dopamine fix. But podcasts are like the exact opposite. Two idiots can ramble for hours.
Yeah. It's kind of like an audiobook, right? Or it's a small lens into whoever's life is on the podcast. And I think people, they can listen to it over multiple days, right? They can break it up. They can listen to an hour on their way to work and then listen to another hour on the way home. And so if it's just an hour, then they're like, man, I really liked that conversation, but now it's over. Wish it would have been longer. Some people are probably like, man, if they don't like it, they just go click next one.
Yeah, and when we get people that are like, I didn't like that topic or what, I mean, there's not every podcast is for everyone, but I think the shows with you are very enlightening. I learn.
I don't know about that.
All right.
I don't know about enlightening. Okay, what's your
No,
question?
you're a deep thinker. I mean, you talk about UFOs and stuff like that, which I mean, dude, we can't have that conversation. We have had some weird conversations in the last week that
Oh
we
yeah,
that we literally
yeah,
pointed out. I never called him expecting it to go this direction, but it does. And if we'd have those conversations on the podcast, the freaking podcast will be a lot more popular.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but
Some of those stay on our
yeah.
long drive conversations. Those get filed away into a different folder.
All right. Well, this question from Patrick Walters. I mean, if you've watched our podcast, whenever I remember, I get the previous guest to ask the question, next guest, and vice versa. But a lot of times I forget. But this is 2 in a row, so I really think I'm on my freaking game right now. Patrick Walters' question is: it's kind of a boring one, but you'll make it deep and good. If you could change one thing about pro fishing, what would it be?
Um, let's see. I would. Man, that's a tough one. I would change. You have to just edit out all the the thought process.
Oh no, people love to know that you're thinking. And
I
I'm
would
too lazy
have
to
to.
edit it out.
I don't know. I would want to, like, the easiest answer is like change the negativity. I don't have a solution for it right now.
No, but I don't think that's the right answer to anything. I mean, I shouldn't critique your answer, but when you think about it, you can't change it because then everybody be positive in it. There has to be ebb and flow in the world. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
you can't
everybody,
have good without evil.
yeah. There's a weird part of me now. This will go in a weird direction. That honestly, when it goes to the forward facing sonar thing, there's like a weird part of me as a sports fan that has thought if we embrace this, this could be the best thing for the sport in the way that like there's never been good or bad in fishing. Like there's never
Yeah,
been sides. It's always been like vanilla. Like no matter who wins, they cheer. Sometimes they cheer louder for some, but they cheer for whoever wins. But if you're going to be a
okay.
Yankees fan, you need to hate the Red Sox. If you be a Red Sox fan, you need to hate the Yankees. So there's a part of me that wonders if we just had scopers versus traditional dudes and made it that, like, there's part of it that rolls the sport through that.
Yeah, there is, but I really would like to just. I mean,
Not
it's funny you
argue.
say that because my next thought was like, oh well, if I'm not going to change the negativity, then I would change like the division,
Yeah.
right? Of like us versus them, or whether it's a tour or seasoned guys versus rookies or whatever, right? Like it shouldn't be us versus them because of an age class or a like a tour or any of that. There should be division amongst, like, hey, we play it the right way, you don't, you're out. Like that's the way it should be. It shouldn't, like, everyone should be judged individually based on their actions. Doesn't matter if you've been here for 20 years, 30 years, or you've been here for 2 months. How you play the game is how you're going to be judged, and you will eventually pay the consequences for the way that you play the game, good, bad, or indifferent.
See a total different direction than I ever expected it to go.
Like that's
You'll
what
have to go down to the aquatic saucer and go to a trial in the pods.
Yeah, I mean, if, like, everyone should have to answer for their actions, and if you break a rule or do whatever, you should have to pay for that.
Do you think those sort of things, and I've been on this for a long time, Do you think all those things should be made public? Like, I think it's foolish. Like when you got DQ'd for a culling infraction, we talked about it, but there's a lot of stuff that in pro fishing doesn't get talked about. To me, like we see penalties in every single sport, but nobody's like, you're a bad player, you're a dirty player. Like it's more common. So I think that, and I think in the world we're living in, whether Bass talks about it or not, somebody going to make a TikTok and going to talk about.
Yeah, you can't hide anything.
No, you shouldn't.
Really, right? I mean, and or you can't sweep anything under the rug, and I don't think you should. I think it should be out there. It's like if you commit, say a crime, but they're not really crimes in that sense. But if you break a rule or have an infraction of some level, then it should be public, and then people will judge you based on that.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be any league's job to protect that angler if the angler is making a choice that puts them in that situation. The angler should have to pay for that, not any league, right? Or any governing body. It's like if you make this decision, you pay for the consequences, right? It's cause and effect. If you do this, then this may happen. And if that happens, it's nobody's fault but your own. And I mean, that's, to me, that's like a core life value for me. And like, I will not literally beat that into my kids, but like
can't do that anymore.
I will, that will be a conversation that I have with my kids a lot, right? And it is already now, and they're 5 months old and 2 years old. But it's like, it's like, oh, if you run across the hardwood floor and your feet are wet, you're going to fall. And guess what? She takes off running across the hardwood floor and her feet are wet, and she eats it into the corner of the, cabinet or something. I grab her, calm her down, and then I make her look at me and say, look, like, explain to her, you ran across the floor, it was wet, this is what happens, right? And I'm like starting to instill that into them now, so that hopefully at some point they're like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't drive my car at 100 miles an hour around this corner or whatever, right? Like just getting that thought process going.
Kids are the most untrusting thing on earth. Like literally, there's no thing that in most situations, there's no connection of anybody that's ever going to be more honest with you than your parents. You know what I mean? Like it's the most pure love. You love, as soon as you see that child, you love them. There's no, when you met Tiff, there was other emotions involved. It wasn't just, but when you meet your child, I mean, all you just want is them to be safe and happy. And all they want to do is tell you you're full of shit. Like that's literally and I remember being that kid, like, you better not do that. You're going to get hurt. And then you just think, no, you just don't want me to have fun. Parents don't want you to have any fun.
Yeah. And I purposely let them do things, like within reason. That's obviously not going to hurt them too bad. But like, I'll purposely watch and let them do things so that they can learn.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, of course that's going to hurt. What do you think was going to happen? Don't do it again. It's like, oh yeah, you broke that rule. Yeah. Here's your fine or whatever it is. The whole fishing world knows about it. Don't do it again. If you break it and then nothing happens, well, what are you teaching that person? They're like, oh yeah, of course. Let's do it again. Nothing happened. Nobody knew about it. Wasn't that bad. Consequences weren't that bad. So it's like, I believe something happens, You pay the time, people know about it, and if you unintentionally did it, people will not even worry about it. If you intentionally did something, people might have a slightly different thought about that. But you have to pay for that because that was your decision.
I get that. I get that. My parents used to try and teach me like the same, like when you say you let your kids mess up.
Yeah.
My dad was really bad for that. We were broke. Like, but we saved up a bunch of money. Well, we as in my parents, not me.
Yeah.
Um,
You
and
were
they were like,
spending it.
we're going to Florida. And we drove a Grand Prix at the time. We took my grandparents. There was 6 of us in a Grand Prix. And at the time,
Solid.
the air conditioner in the Grand Prix would only come out of the center. There'd be 4 giant holes. So me and my brother froze the whole way to Florida because one of us always had to sit in the front. And for my grandmother to be cool in the back, we had to freeze. But I remember on that trip, so my parents, they were making these rusty nails. Was it like they were just, I mean, they were having a beer on the beach, but they would make these tumbler sized rusty nails. I'm making them sound horrible, but they would sit and sip this drink all night. And a rusty nail is like Drambuie and scotch or something, like it's straight liquor.
Yeah.
Me being the mouthpiece that I was, I'm like, hey, give me one of those. And my dad's like, you want one of these? And I'm like, yeah, give it up. And he's like, all right, but I don't want you taking a sip of it. If you're going to drink this, I don't want it back. I want you to drink it. And I remember my mother being on the other side of the room being like, no, this is no good. But my father, this was a learning moment for me. So me being the idiot that I am, grabbed it and hammered the whole thing back. And I felt wonderful for about 10 seconds. And then the room started spinning and I puked uncontrollably. And I've never drank a rusty nail since. So I think his lesson works.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you're doing to your girls at this point, but it might work sometime down the road.
No, not to, I mean, it's under much much safer. There's no alcohol involved with my 2-year-olds or my 5-month-old. I guess she's 6 months now. Jeez. Yeah. But I mean, I think that applies.
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents do that, right? They're like, hey, okay, yeah, you want a beer? Go ahead, try it, drink it.
Yeah. My buddy got caught smoking. His dad said, you want to smoke? Let's smoke. And they sat on the deck and smoked.
Yeah.
Until he threw up. But that same buddy became a drug addict. So probably not the greatest approach.
Yeah. Proceed with caution.
Did you answer Patrick's question?
Yeah.
Totally.
I think I did.
Okay.
It was supposed to be done after that, but then we got off on other tangents. I think it was I think it started with like changing the division of it, and then it kind of morphed into people paying for doing their time for their whatever their crime is.
Yeah. So what's your question for our next guest to finish that part off?
Oh yeah. Glad you remembered.
I'm on my game these 2 weeks, dude. I'm really focused.
Oh gosh.
It's usually easier. I usually forget to ask, and then I text you, and you get more time to come up with it.
Yeah. I don't know who the guest is going to be, so
I don't know either yet.
It's going to be kind of off of Patrick's, but if you could change one thing about yourself, what would you change?
Oh. What would you change?
I would change probably lack of discipline in some areas. Yeah, I'd probably
I've never seen your lack of when have you have a lack of discipline, dude?
I mean, I just feel like I could be more disciplined in like business things or certain things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't see you as somebody without discipline. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
if you need more discipline, I'm screwed.
We all have different levels.
Yeah.
Don't compare yourself.
I hear you. I hear you. So do you ever read those books behind you or?
Yeah, I think I've actually read.
Of course you have.
I've read almost all of them on this top shelf. This is a good one. This would be a good one for
The subtle art of not giving a giver.
That was a good one. This one was really interesting. That was
A New Earth.
that was a deep one.
You found a freaking new earth, purpose. I believe. Awakening to your life's purpose.
Yeah, that one was that one took me a while to get into. This one is super good. The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. That's a really good book.
We're having a full-on book club here.
Oh yeah. Shoe Dog. I don't always agree with current Nike policies, but Shoe Dog's about Phil Knight and starting Nike. It's pretty cool to listen to the story. I
feel like a new segment's arising. Every month we're gonna have Brandon's book club.
This one is super awesome.
Oh, you've told me about this one before.
Yeah, Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. It is amazing.
All right.
To listen to that. Like, because it's super cool because he has so many like journaling pieces in here, like things that he wrote down, and then like he just, I don't know, it's cool to listen to see his perspective, and I got a lot out of that one. So yeah,
wow.
I could keep going, but yeah, I have read a lot of those. And you know what? I will say this. I thought about this the other day, and then we can end this podcast. I don't even know how long we've been going.
We've been going a while, but hey, I appreciate it.
This will be my last thought. I was thinking about this the other day of like recently I've felt like really rushed. Like where like whether it's on the water or off the water, like I just felt like I didn't have time, and like everything was just compiling on top of itself, right? It was just like nonstop. Like I couldn't ever get ahead. And I started thinking about it. I was like, I haven't read in a while. And I like made time and sat down and started reading a new book the other day. And it was like, it instantly changed my thought process, right? Which seems like the polar opposite of what you would want to do, right? Like feel like you have all of these things to catch up on and do, and feel like you're behind, to take time and sit down and do none of those and read a book. But I think creating that space, it was like it slowed everything down for me, and then I was able to like process everything rather than just feeling like a ping pong ball all over the place. Like here, I got to do this. It was like I could just sit down, take time, have some intent, and then carry on. And then it was like, I don't know, it was a weird process. So if that's kind of what I get out of reading, I get whatever the book is about, you get that part, but I also get kind of that clarity of creating that time, and then it for me, it seems easier to like create a system, right? And like create a checklist of like, okay, that was part of my day. Now I'm going to do this, 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 this. I don't know why, like what part of the brain triggers in that, but that was something I thought about the other day and recently happened with me.
What if you got a friend who hasn't read a book in like 25 years?
Just read one. Pick one up and start
You
reading.
heard my reading. It's bad at the beginning. Maybe that's why.
But if you don't feel like, you may not need to
know. I
read,
need
like,
some book time. Trust me, I need some guidance.
Like 30 minutes, like, and it's harder now with kids.
Yeah.
But it's like getting up a little earlier, like even if it's 30 minutes and it's like coffee, book. I'm a type of person that has to have like some alone time to like process, and that's a good time to do it. Creating that space.
You are such an old young man. Like I could just see you,
old soul,
having your coffee in the morning.
Wow. Yeah, sitting there reading a book. When Cora was born, Tiff would have to feed her all night because I don't have the female parts to feed her.
No.
So she would feed her, and then, oh man, we've been talking so long, it just keeps getting darker.
Oh yeah, you're like horrible, embarrassing.
I would get up at like 5 a.m. with her, right? Because at that time I was reading the 5 a.m. club. So I was making sure I was up at 5 a.m. every day. But I would take that shift and I would grab her and I would just walk out to the living room, make coffee, and she'd be like sleeping in my arms. And then I would just read the book with her sleeping in my arms. And like, that was part of my process every day.
Is that when you guys started teaching her sign language? I mean, I felt like such a loser when I saw your kids going. I'm like, bye.
You're going to get me onto another topic. Teaching your kids sign language is like the greatest thing ever. And it's not like either of us knew any sign language, but we had read a lot about it. That's that part of your brain. So like they can comprehend what they want and know, but the verbal part is not there. And so they can't speak what they want. And that's where a lot of the frustration comes from when they're young. And
that's when they throw things at you.
But they can sign it. The verbal part of that communication is one of the last things to develop. Some people, it'd probably be better off if it just never developed in. But I remember looking at Tiff going, this is the biggest waste of time. We have spent months and months and months teaching her this stuff. Right? It was like 4 months of us like, eat, like we'd feed her, so like eat, or like, oh, you want more, just the simple stuff. And I was like, this is dumb. She's done none of it. And I kid you not, it was the next week she started signing almost everything that we had been teaching her. It was like, it just exploded. And then she'd be like, eat, and what it did for us is when Tiff was traveling and we have a camera in the back seat of the car, she could see her when we're driving. Cora would get upset and Tiff would just say, what do you need? And she could sign what she needed. And she could say she wanted to eat or she wanted water or drink or something, right? And you could give it to her. And then she's fine.
Well, it was successful in making me feel like a loser because as soon as I saw it, I went home to Sarah and I was like, Sarah, we're losers. Just so you know, we're losers. Our kids yelled and screamed at us, threw stuff at us. His kids are asking for more. And my kids know one sign language and they didn't learn it until they were teenagers.
Still use it.
They probably learned it before they were teenagers. That's totally a lie.
Yeah.
dude, I enjoy our conversations. By the sounds of the background, it's time to go and read to your girls.
Yeah, I think they're starting to eat. Or
It's hard to believe when I met you, you were this unknown kid from Idaho that was full of passion, and you're quickly evolving into Rick Clunn, dude, right in front of my very own eyes.
I guess I like Rick.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I won't fish as long as Rick, but
I bet you when Rick was 20 years in or whatever you're in, 15, 16 years in, he probably said, I will never fish 50. But then next thing you know is you're like, yeah, it's good.
That's insane.
It is nuts.
I mean, yeah.
It is nuts.
Odds are I won't physically be able to, but
most people will not. But I mean,
that's for another conversation.
I think this long podcast was enough of a commitment for both of us. Thank you, dude.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, I can't wait to see the underwater saucer. What is the unidentified
underwater object?
Okay,
UUO.
Is that what it is? You've already figured. What if you go down there and there's? No, I'm not even bringing that up. Let's tell Bob Cobb to take it away. There's no time for me to put a bumper at the end because we've talked so friggin' long. So tell Bob Cobb, say, hey, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Hey, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Nailed it.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?